Hi guys, this is Early Buddhism, and today we are going to talk about rebirth as a concept in early Buddhism. So, I have lots of things to discuss today. It ranges from the concept of dependent arising or origination, as you may call it. It it will include karma. It will include the some talk on secular Buddhism. It will also include some research of Ian Stevenson and Jim B. Tucker done on the children who experienced or who remember past lives and various kind of biological science associated with it. So before diving into the concept of rebirth in Buddhism, I just want to present a short slide which I made on the research work done by Ian Stevenson and Jim B. Tucker on the rebirth and reincarnation studies. Rebirth and reincarnation are interchangeable terms which I use. Obviously, some scholars have a problem with the word reincarnation, but I just use them interchangeably, so there is no difference. When I use rebirth or reincarnation, they mean the same thing. So let's talk about first Jim B. Tucker and Ian Stevenson. So Ian Stevenson. Ian Stevenson is a predecessor of Jim B. Tucker, and they both are professors in the University of Virginia. Ian Stevenson pioneered the research in he was basically a psychiatrist who was researching the children who remember past lives, and he went deep into this topic, and he researched and he collected all the studies from different continents: Europe, Asia. In Asia also he collected studies from India, Myanmar, Thailand. In Africa also he conducted studies. So he collected studies from all over the world of children who remember past lives. And the results were astonishing. Like, he published four or three books, I guess, and he has published many research papers. So some of which I'm going to discuss today. He said, you can see Ian Stevenson. He began in 1960, focusing on children or past lives. I already told you. So these are one of the two books of him I read earlier. So in this, basically, what happens is, like, you have a child, and he suddenly starts having nightmares, and in those he suddenly wakes up in the middle of the night, and he'll start saying, like, I'm not this person, I was that person, I and this is how I died. I was killed in a car accident, I died drowning, I was shot, and here I find myself in this body. I remember all the details of my past life. I was this guy, I was living by this name, I had these parents, I was living in this place, this was my occupation. And he's suddenly, they keep telling all these things, and they are very young children. Remember, they are the main the job of a researcher is to find whether they are making up these stories, or whether their parents are involved in this, or is this some kind of hoax. But this hoax is happening across different continents, across different time zones, which have no contact over each other. And during the time Ian Stevenson was doing his research, he was doing it in 1960s. So there was no point, like, all these, like, some there is no giant conspiracy, there is no giant hoax, like all of these are conspiring against researchers. No, there is nothing happening. So he was basically doing research on these kids, and he found very interesting things. I can say that. I'm going to tell you what he found. uh, First, let me also tell you about Jim B. Tucker. He's Jim B. Tucker, the one you are looking on the screen. This guy. Uh, yeah, this guy, this. Mm. So, Jim B. Tucker was his successor. He was also in the same department. He just continued the research work of uh, Ian Stevenson. So they are basically, you can even see his designation, former Bonner Lowry Professor of Psychiatry and Neurobehavioral Sciences at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. So I have read his books also, and his books I find more comfortable reading. Like Ian Stevenson work I've read, but it is more kind of a research work. Like you, normal layman, as a layman who is not a behavioral scientist or psychiatrist, I find that a doctorate kind of work of academic work. But Jim B. Tucker books you can also read as a layman, as a normal person. Like you do not need to have deep knowledge or be associated with any of these behavioral sciences. No need PhD or anything. They just read like normal books, and I would recommend the his first book, Return to Life. It was amazing. Like he has he has many accounts of people who remember past lives and how he researched them, how he find out about the previous person, and they try to make connections like what he's telling is this truth or not, and they eventually even find about the people who lived before. Like if this person is telling about that person, right, I was this person, they will go to their house and they will find about that the person who died, deceased person, everything, and most of the details will match, and some of the things like no one could know. Some of the things are personal, even they will know about the personal details also. So yeah, but you can say like, yeah, but this doesn't prove anything, right? Anyone can make this stuff up. Maybe they are conspiring, the two families are conspiring, the family of deceased or not, or maybe he found out that information subconsciously through another means and he's just remembering that. Anything could happen. You can make all these kind of judgments or excuses, I would say. But here's the thing that gets interesting in this case. So these cases aren't related to only memories. They're also birthmarks, they are phobias, and there is, in some cases, xenoglossia. So what is this? And even in some cases they are announcing dreams. But yeah, you could say they are not proofs. But I would focus on the biological markers. So birthmarks. How does birthmark relate to all this? So mainly the person who is remembering the past life, he would say that this birthmark that I have is the exact place where my previous deceased body died of a wound. So if somebody shot you, you would have a birthmark in this place in the next life. Or some of the it doesn't necessarily mean a fatal wound. It could be any wound or anything related to the past life that is just showing its signs in your present body. So these are the kinds of birthmarks he also found matching between the people who were saying that he was that person in his previous life. He found matching those birthmarks in both the deceased and the present living person. So there was a talk of phobia. If you died, suppose of drowning in your previous life, you would develop phobia in your next life of water. Or if you died by falling, you would develop phobia of heights. So they had these kind of phobias and even PTSD symptoms, unexplainable PTSD symptoms. They also had xenoglossy. Xenoglossy is a thing, it means like you know a language which you never learned. Like in my life also, I have my mother who never learned Punjabi language and she could just understand it everything, which is not easy thing. Like she just understands everything. Like you would have seen these people in your life too. who just understand a language which you could not possibly explain otherwise. Like, how could they know? Or even in the Ian Stevenson research cases, they even could speak the languages, which is also for someone who is a child is literally like very tough thing to fake. So these were the cases. Like, so yeah, like I talked about birthmarks. Like you can see on the slide, like he's this wound that corresponds to the wound of the diseased person. This birthmark corresponds to the wound of diseased person. So Ian Stevenson documented 20 cases in Thailand, Myanmar. Tucker and Kell added 18 more. They are the researchers who published another paper. And then Mylog reviewed 51 Asian studies too. We have their research paper also. So he also published about African tribes who had unusual beliefs regarding rebirth and reincarnation. So there were some West African tribes who purposefully mutilated bodies of disease so that they could identify the next inborns where their birthmarks were. So he obviously tell that the Igbo tribe did the finger and toe amputation. Yoruba did the lip excision. Akan did the buttock curls, and Sira did the ear mutilation. So there were these all kind of things that happens in African tribes also, and it is not just related to the places where Buddhism is spread. Like in Africa also, there is a belief on reincarnation. And speaking of reincarnation, it's not like a thing just associated with Eastern studies. Pythagoras, who's a famous, like even earlier than Plato and all these philosophers, the movement Plato, not Pythagoras movement, believed in reincarnation before even the Eastern uh, had their hold on, before this idea even had the hold on East. Even Pythagoras believed in this reincarnation theory. He taught his students this thing. So you can see this concept is not like it is spread everywhere. In Africa, people believe it. In Asia, like Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, Sikh, everyone believes in reincarnation, and in Europe also. Apart from Christianity and Islam, like it was a major point of discussion, reincarnation. So this is the research paper of Ian Stevenson. So I collected some of the cases, and I just put the summaries here. Like there was a case on Hamphan Pechrat of Thailand. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly, but I just read them. So in this case, like a boy recalled that he was drowned, and he was a girl who recalled the life as a boy, was drowned, and showed masculine behavior, and even had birthmarks matched with the previous body. There was a case of Bishan Chandra Kapoor in India. At 10 months, he spoke of a past life in Philbith. Verified details matched a deceased playboy's life. There is Bongkuch Promsen in Thailand. He recalled being murdered. Statement verified as accurate for Latonian youth's life. So you can see that the Ian Stevenson is making these connections. He first looks at the cases, who is this person telling he was, and then he goes to find out the previous person, and he matches the details. And you can see like a person in India in 1921 is making claims of some playboy. Like how would he know? This is not like internet age. Like it is 1921, 1954, 1960. So this is pre-internet era I'm talking about. So there is Carlos Jotkin Jr. in Alaska, born with marks matching his uncle's surgical scar, recognized family and showed similar traits. Obviously, you could make a case like he was from the same family, so they could make up stuff. Okay, one case. Okay, let's see another. Iman Ilawer of Lebanon made 47 statement about a past life, 44 very dead accurate for a man in a distant village. So I have just summarized. I've just given some of the cases. Like he has hundreds of cases in his research work and books. So if anyone is interested in this, they could just they could look this up. Like if anyone is interested in this, they could look this up and see for themselves, like the studies that have been done on uh, past life, reincarnation, rebirth. Even Raymond Moody, I like his work. Like Raymond Moody is a famous near-death experience. He writes on near-death experience, but he has talked on rebirth and reincarnation many times. And I like, if you like these type of topics, you can go through his books. His work is amazing. So I was not till now. I was not discussing about Buddhism. I was just going off the topic and give you some context about, like, is this something you should consider actually real? Is this something you should think about as an intellectual person, as a 21st century person who doesn't believe in miracles and voodoo stuff, who doesn't wear tinfoil hat? So is this something you should think about? I would say definitely. Rebirth and reincarnation are not something that needs to be ridiculed. It needs to be given a serious thought. Even if I don't consider the Buddhist perspective, even I consider just normal intellectual person perspective, a good educated person perspective, it needs to be considered. It is something that needs to be considered, especially as panpsychism is gaining ground even in sciences and philosophy. Panpsychism means that at the core of our reality is consciousness, not materialism. So that concept is even gaining ground in various kind of physicists who just, and this is not some foreign concept. So if all that could be true, reincarnation could be true as well. This is not something voodoo stuff, tinfoil hat territory stuff. So I was just, before I delve into the Buddhism concept, I was just giving you the context of all the things like what I'm going to talk about. So let's go to the main topic, which we are we were going to discuss, which is rebirth in Buddhism. So I made a slide for this specifically. And the first topic, sorry, this is not the first, yeah. So I made a slide for this, and we are going to discuss some of the topics today, like related to this. And through these topics, I'm going to describe the various kind of aspects that are related to the rebirth in early Buddhism. The topic which I'm going to discuss are dependent arising, which is one of the core concept which we really need to understand if we want to understand the rebirth in Buddhism. Then rebirth as a concept in early Buddhism, what were the debates around it? What were the disagreements with it? What were the debates even in the internal Buddhist schools, within the Buddhist, different kind of Buddhism schools? What were the debates? We're going to discuss that too. What did Buddha find during his awakening, and what was his insight? And at last, we are also going to discuss right view and secular Buddhism. So let's go to the first topic, which is dependent arising. The Pali word for it is patika samupada. So what is this dependent arising? So dependent arising is the cornerstone of Buddhist thought. You can equate it with it. In some places it is said that you can equate this with the dharma itself. Like if you understand this topic, if you understand this concept, you understand the dharma itself, the dharma, Buddhist dharma itself. So basically it is just like a principle of causation. The Western counterpart of it would be the causation principle, cause and effect. If everything has a cause and that arises with the effect. In The Pali Canon, it is described as because there is this, that is, because this arises, that arises. So it basically governs the conditionality principle. And you could, in a way, say that everything arises from pre existing condition and conditions future phenomena. This is the definition of dependent arising. Ab, Now, what are the different implications it has? This phenomena has. There are many implications. There are ontological implications. There are epistemological i- implications. There are psychological implications. Now, let's first come to the ontological implications. Now, this is the concept which is also discussed in the works of Mark Seidritz, who is one of my favorite authors. He also discusses this, and Bhikkhu Bodhi has written books on it. Richard Gombrich has written books on it, and many other famous Buddhist authors have talked on this phenomena. So the ontological implication by I mean like basically it means that all phenomena arises from prior causes and conditions future phenomena. So it means no independent entities exist. So everything is dependently originated. So you can say that causation is when X occurs, Y follows, and if Y does not occur, Y does not follow. If X does not occur, Y does not follow. So basically they are just trying to say that nothing exists independently. Everything has a causation. You cannot find a one particular single thing that doesn't exist independently. It must have a cause somewhere. So it is a very big ontological implication, right? You are unable to find a thing which doesn't have a cause because everything has a cause. So it is this. Another is epistemological implication. Now it is connected to the concept of shunyata, emptiness, which is a yogacara concept, not that much discussed in Theravada Mahayana concept. It is particularly emptiness is a school of thought related to Mahayana school, not Theravada school of Buddhism, because they don't usually go that deep, or not. I would not. I wouldn't say go that deep. I would say they just practice some differently than the Mahayana people in Himalayas and Tibet. So the we find this Shunyata concept through those scholars, Mahayana scholars who are associated with those schools. It just means that all phenomena is empty of inherent existence due to dependence arising because everything is a causation. So there is independently, inherently nothing in anything. Everything is emptiness. So there comes the word shunyata, which means emptiness. There are psychological implications as well, which I am quoting Richard Gombrich. He said that the experience are processes subject to causation and all events occur under specific condition, not by chance. Nothing is happening by chance. Everything has a cause. And experiences, our experiences, our product process is subject to causation as well. So this is Richard Gombrich. So he's basically describing this. So I made a slide of it this as well. Nothing exists on its own or phenomena arises independence on causes and conditions. Suffering, which is not the correct translation of dukkha, but yeah, it does the job. Suffering arises due to ignorance, craving, and clinging. Suffering has is the effect, causes ignorance, craving, clinging. So what does this dependent arising implies? It means we have to break the chain. Suffering has a cause, so we just have to break that chain. Why suffering is arising? We if we break that chain, nirvana. I'm explaining in very simple terms, but yeah, that just what it means. Because this exists, that exists. When this is, that is. This is concept in reality. So, how did this concept arise during the Buddha's time? Scholars believe that it was in response to the Vedic myths which were prevalent in India at that time. Vedic myths were just like the Christian myths, creation myths. God said the word and it created this heavens, that heavens. So Vedic myths were also something like that. I'm not ridiculing Christianity or ridiculing Hinduism. I'm not going down that path. I'm just focusing on Buddhism. So don't write in the comments like he's telling this, that. I'm just trying to explain Buddhism. So Buddhism was in response to the Vedic creation myths, this concept. Vedic creation myths was like just like you find in your Christianity. They were some kind of similar, not exactly I would say that, but kind of similar. So during that Buddha's time, Buddha was trying to tell people that you shouldn't believe these myths and legends and all these things. You should try to focus on the practice, things you can do yourself, and that would really help in your practice. So he developed this. Scholars believe that he developed this concept as a challenge to the Vedic creation myths. So instead of genesis of creator God, we actually has a genesis of dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, pain, and suffering. We have a genesis of this, and it is within ourselves. We are responsible for it. There is no determinism. No one else is responsible for this. No one else has made our luck. No one has decided for us. We are responsible for everything. We can stop this process. We can stop this suffering. So this is that. So when you basically study the dependent arising, we have 12 links. They are known as 12 links that are generally given. Buddha described them in many parallel passages, similar passages. They are spread across different types, different sutras across Pali canon. They basically say the same thing, like first comes the ignorance, then comes the volitional formations. I will tell in brief about all of these things. Then comes the consciousness, then comes the name and form, then comes the six senses, then comes the contact, then comes the feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, and then again we start the process of birth. So this cycle is, you can see this chain and cycle going on: birth, death, ignorance, volition, formation. So Buddha is trying to focus us on this process, like focus. If you are experiencing the effect, which is the suffering, you have to focus on the cause. What is causing this? How can you stop this process in the future as well, not just in the present? How can you stop these rebirths that are happening across various lifetimes? You are going through this process again and again, which he calls samsara, the cycle of rebirth and death. So how you can stop this? So he basically formulates these concepts of ignorance. Ignorance is like not knowing right path, believing wrong views. Wrong views like there is no afterlife. Wrong views like craving is good. Going after sensuality and going after pleasures is good, which is wrong view. These are the wrong views. Doing bad karma, harming others, doing something or speaking of it, speaking with malice or hate, speaking harmful words, doing deeds that are harmful to others, stealing, all these kind of things. This comes under ignorance, because ignorance is the reason you are doing these things. Then come the volitional formations. through ignorance, you willingly do these things, you develop volition formations. Then comes the consciousness. And consciousness and name and form are interchangeable. Like through name and form comes consciousness, and through consciousness comes name and form. I have drawn them in a circle, but they are not exactly like, because consciousness and name and form each other. They are not like first comes the consciousness, then comes the name and form. No, name and form can also give rise to consciousness. Consciousness can also give rise to name and form. And then comes the six senses. Six senses then leads to contact. So how six senses leads to contact and what is this? I will try to explain. Suppose my sense is eyes. I have contact. I am seeing a beautiful girl on the laptop. That is a contact happening. Contact will give rise to feeling. I will feel good, and then will that leads to craving. That will leads to clinging. That will leads to becoming, and then birth and death. Similarly, contact my tongue. I am binging on fast food and pizza. Sense contact is fast food. Contact leads to feeling. I am feeling good. I am feeling like amazing, like this food is amazing. Then comes the craving from food, clinging from food, becoming, and then I go through this cycle of birth and death again. So these things are happening. So this is how he describes the process and how we have to break this chain to remove ourselves from this dukkha and samsara. So then, so yeah, you can. Before I change the next topic, I also want to discuss like how this concept was known in different schools of Buddhism. So I'll just put a picture here of like different types of school, because people really have confusion regarding different types of schools. Most of the people don't even know that there are different kind of schools and thoughts in Buddhism. They just consider that this is just one same thing. Like in Christianity, you have different types of Protestant Christian and this Christianity, that Christianity. Some are later saints, Church of Later Saints. So in every, if this thought is spread so wide, we obviously develop some fractures and some delineation towards from the main thought, because as time progresses, fractures occur, delineations happen, and people just who don't agree with each other go towards different paths. So that also happened around 300 BC. So the around 300 BC, Buddhism branched off into two. Then that branched, second one it branched into three, which we had Sarvastivada, then one other we became Pudgalavadin, and another was Theravada, which we know now. So between what we have Theravada and there was a Shravastiva school, they both had different types of concepts regarding dependent arising. Shravastivada thought that the whole of these 12 links of dependent arising happened across three lifetimes. One was past lifetime, present, and future. And Theravada, which had a book called Vibhanga, in that they describe that all these things happen in one lifetime and single moment only. This isn't dependent across multiple lifetimes. So you can say that these interpretations are complementary, not mutually exclusive, and they just show that this doctrine has various kind of flexibilities. And even in some of the books, you will find that not 12 links are given, but 6 links are given. In some cases, 3 also given. So this is, there is some kind of flexibility, and this is the main point, is that there is causation and effect. This has nothing to do with like Buddha doesn't believe in like giving commandments, so you can't change that or you can't find different processes. Whatever suits you, if you remain true to the path, you can follow that. So this is the concept of dependent arising. So how it relates to the rebirth process we are discussing, like, yeah, you Some of you will say, yeah, you described us dependent arising, but we are watching the video for rebirth. So how does this connect to rebirth? So you will find that I have done circle two boxes here: birth and old age and death. So it is related to birth. What is the process that is pushing the us through rebirth and death? This is the process that is pushing us through rebirth and death. This is why this is important. So Buddha explained rebirth through this process, dependent arising. This is the process that leads to rebirth. That is the process you have to break the chain of. That's why this is important in the discussion of rebirth. So then, how come this? What is this rebirth as a concept? Like, how did Buddha describe rebirth? Like, Buddha described rebirth in through various ways. One of which was he described his past lives and his recollection of past lives. In Bhavabhirava Sutta, he described that he had past lives including names, families, including different diets and experiences of pleasure and pain. All this he achieved while through the deep concentration and deep meditation, he was able to make that insight and remember all the past lives. In Mahapadana Sutta, he also described that he not only had past lives on earth but on different kind of heavenly realms. He was this god, that god, he was this living in this realm. So he was not only describing the past lives of on earth or similar to our dimension, but he was basically describing all the past lives he had as even in the upper planes of Buddhism, in heavens and all kind of things. So he was describing that. He was not conservative in his experiences. So, but he also so he basically described his past lives to all this, but the main focus was like Buddhists all agree about past lives and all, but whenever you there was a major contention regarding the concept of rebirth during Pudgalavadins. So when people were reading all this Pali canon, like Buddha described his past lives. He described what happens if you do the bad karma. Like he described literally, like he said that when I was during my awakening, I saw beings going through who did bad karma going through hell, who did good karma going through heaven or coming on this our dimension and being born in wealthy families, well-to-do places where food and everything is easy. They are beautiful. They are born in wealth. They are born in reputed families. Those who do bad karma, they are born in lower class families. What that means is like obviously people would say that this just promotes caste system, but he wasn't basically trying to go towards caste. He was basically trying to go towards wealth. Well to do or not well to do means basically wealth, which have not as wealth status as the above families. They don't gain beauty. Yeah, some of you might say beauty is subjective, but he was just saying that they are not born beautiful or those things. So he was just basically saying how karma affects the next life. So he could see that through the his insight that all these beings were going through this process. So this is how I describe rebirth. So before I go through that, so people there was I'm going to discuss this slide which is on screen, which is that in Buddhism there is no permanent self. Obviously, not self is a main topic here. So people would ask like, if there is no self, what is going through the rebirth? If previous me is not me, then what is the thing that is going through the rebirth? and whose lives I am remembering. Past life must mean something if the thing in the past is me. If the thing in the past is not me, then what is this past lives? So, this was the topic of contention among Pudgalavadins, one of the schools of Buddhism which others consider as heretical. But it was a major famous school in Buddhism and was had huge following in the Gujarat side of the India. So Pudgalavadin said that yeah, something must exist, and they called that Pudgal. And they said that yeah, that something is not entirely self, but it's not entirely not self either. They called it Pudgala, personality. And they said that their personality carries our past lives. It goes through the cycle of rebirth and it experiences karma, and it is the thing which experiences nirvana. So they obviously the other sects said that obviously you are then just saying that it is self because so they had this fight among themselves. Like one was saying that Udgalavadins are just creating another concept of self, and they are just creating a sect of which believes in self inside the Buddhism. So there was all this kind of contention during earlier times. Then people might say like, what is the thing that carries the past lives and these karma? So Buddha also talked about residual tendencies or latent tendencies which we carry throughout lives. You obviously might say like if someone is born a baby, how come he be considered bad? Like if previous person is not him, then how is considered bad? So we basically Buddha said that we carry some underlying tendencies and latent dispositions. Like we carry our habits, basically our habits, if you could just say, through different lives. If you are good at music or if you're good at bodybuilding, you would just catch those habits easily in your next lives. This is what Ian Stevenson also found. Like they used to just had that quality to catch up things fast, which were they were better at in their previous life. So these were the, but the downside of that is that we also are able to catch bad tendencies fast, which were our habits during previous lives. So Buddha talked about that in some of the suttas, or we could say someone else talked about that and they just attributed it to Buddha. I don't know, but it is there in the Pali Canon. We also had a concept of Gandhaba, and it is just like a spirit which goes through one life to another. And you could just see that we have a concept of Udgalas, we had a concept of Gandhaba. So Buddhism is just playing with the word soul here, and they just don't want to call it self. So because they hate the self word, but they are just playing with the concept of soul and spirit and all these things. But they just give them different names, and that you could see that. But obviously, they still call that not self because they also consider Gandhapa and Pudgalavadins as not permanent because they are also ever changing. You are a different person from your previous life. Your memories are different. Obviously, you have added new memories. Your dispositions is different. Your habits are different. So you are a different person. So obviously, you have changed. So you cannot say that you are the previous person, same self, because you have changed. So in a sense, they are also correct. In a sense, others are also correct. I think when they say that yeah, you are just playing with the words because you are just giving them different names, Gandhaba, Pudgalavad, and instead of just saying them soul. So I can see where this criticism also comes towards Buddhism. But yeah, these are the I'm just explaining you how it works in Buddhism. So we also have memory continuity, which I've already explained to you. Past life memories can be accessed through deep meditation, as Buddha did. So these all the effects. These were the effects of. These are the characteristics of rebirth as a concept in Buddhism. Now we come to a very interesting topic, which is Buddha's awakening. So you all know the story of Buddha. He left home. He he practiced under two teachers and he couldn't find the nirvana. He couldn't find the way out of that. And then he went on his own. And instead of going through the hard path, he found the middle way and actually found the real path, which was to let go of the craving, to let go of the desire. That was he found the middle way. So we we also, in discussing the topic of rebirth, we also have to discuss the topic of his what he found during his awakening. I've already told you. He talked about past lives and how beings transferred from one life to another. He saw all through that through his uh, awakening. So during his awakening, I will tell you, he recalled his past lives, observed other rebirth during his awakening, recalled named families, saw beings reborn based on karmic deeds. So what is the insight that we have through this? What is Buddha trying to say here? You will notice that Buddha isn't saying that I saw this, that's why you have to believe this. He isn't saying that. He's saying, I saw this, but you can also see this. This isn't just a belief. You follow the path, you see it yourself. This is the main differentiation between Buddha and all the other gurus you see, all the other prophets you see. Buddha is saying you can practice this yourself, you can find this path yourself. I am not special, you can do this too. So this was his main awakening point, which I truly admire in Buddhism. Another is, in this slide I have to talk you about karma. I will give you a brief talk about karma too. How the karma relates to rebirth. So what is karma? Karma is intention. Volition is a slightly fancy word, but I have included the volition word, but I would say it is intention. What do you intend while doing something? Um, Now people just believe that karma just means physical action. It also means speech. It also means thoughts. Most people don't know this. It also includes thoughts. And this is a similar concept which you will see in the words of, if you are a Christian, not Buddhist, you will also see this in the words of Christianity. In one of the things, like Jesus said that if you have if you think about doing adultery with someone else's wife, you have already done the adultery. But because you have thought about it, so you have already done the adultery. So it is a similar concept here also. Buddha just don't only believe in physical karma. He also believes in not only speech but mental also. You have to keep pristine mental thoughts. They are also counting in the karma part. So it's not just speech and action, it is also mental stuff. You have to keep three things in check to be good and to be at the good side of karma. So how just karma helps in this rebirth concept? Karma is the thing that is deciding how the rebirth process goes through. Dependent arising is the one that is pushing the process. Karma is the one deciding how it happens. Whether you go through hell, whether you have a bad life, whether you go through the animal kingdom instead of human being, or whether you go up towards heavens, karma is the thing that is deciding what happens with you. So karma, and also karma is not like, it is operates within a network of condition. It is not a sole determining factor. Buddhism isn't deterministic. It isn't like that you have done this in the past and you will only experience those things. You have bad karma, and there are other factors at play as well, like your environment, like your body disorders, and not even sometimes other sections towards you that are not even related to anything you have done in the past. They are just things happening to you. So karma is just one thing in the network of conditions which are happening to you. So how does karma helps in understanding the concept of rebirth? Obviously, people when people come to Buddhism, they like all the principles of Four Noble Truths. They like Eightfold Paths. They love that. They like all the philosophy of non-attachment. They even like dependent arising and all the other philosophy and things that you truly admire about Buddha. They also admire Kalama Sutta, which is being really thinking about stuff and not just taking it as belief system. They all admire all these things, but they really hate the fact about rebirth and karma. Like they just believe like it is something like cultural baggage of Indians, which they have just put on this philosophy. But it is not like that. It is actually core concept of Buddhism. Karma and rebirth are, if you take out karma and rebirth, you just Buddhism doesn't make any sense. So how does it help? Karma helps. Some are rich, others are poor. Some are healthy, others are sick. Some are intelligent, others not. Some succeed effortlessly, others fail despite effort. So why does this differences exist in human destinies? Someone is born in a billionaire family and I have to work hard just to survive. So these, if there is no concept of karma and rebirth, it just it just is means plain stupid. It like doesn't make any sense. Hitler also dies at the end, and someone who has given his life to save others, he also dies the same death. And just universe seem just unjust because like someone who has killed so many people and someone who has given his life to save others, they both are given at the same end, dies, and nothing happens to. He doesn't gain any reward, and Hitler doesn't suffer for his bad deeds, or Stalin or Hitler, anyone you might say, or Mao or anyone just doesn't suffer. So if you remove that concept, nature would seem unjust. Like it would definitely seem unjust. Like first of all, I was not born a billionaire's son. I was born in a family which I have to work super hard and be in a competition. And then when some people are actually doing bad stuff, they are not experiencing bad things. They go through whole life never being punished for their bad stuff that they did to others. And some of the people who are doing good stuff, they never gain any advantage. So if you remove the concept of karma and rebirth, it just everything just seems unjust. So this karma and rebirth gives a perspective that is not only very good but also makes things bearable and seems like it is just. And if not just, it will justice will happen later. So they just make us, they even help us make sense of the world. So that is one of the also concept, like it actually makes more sense to believe in this than not. And it is, I have also given one of the analogy like rotten mango seed. gives unhealthy tree and good seed gives healthy tree. Destiny and character are not random but rooted in past karma. So there's that. So these were the things like I want to discuss about karma. And then we come on to our last topic, which is right view and secular Buddhism. So what is this right view and secular Buddhism? So if you go to through the YouTube, or if you go through any of the Spotify podcast, if any one of the Western speakers you will listen, they always say they are secular Buddhists. Interesting word there, secular Buddhists. Like I I really admire them. They are really good at whatever they are doing. They are giving incredible benefit to the humanity by producing content of Buddhism. But I just dislike one thing of theirs, which is like they call themselves secular Buddhists. You you could just call yourself early Buddhist, EBT or early Buddhism stuff, which is also fine. Yeah, you just want to remove the extra stuff which was added later and which was not said by Buddha. I agree to that. But secular Buddhism is just like a concept which is saying that you don't believe in karma and future lives, life after death. You don't believe in reincarnation. So it is just like saying we don't believe that part of Buddha, but we only believe in his Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Paths and all these things. Okay, I agree, totally agree. But here's the problem with that view. Buddha himself said that it is a wrong view. There was during Buddha's time also. There were different types of eight types of different type of sects. One believed that nothing happens after death. One believed like we are eternal. So there was all these different kind of wrong views during Buddha's time as well. And he specifically called them out and he called these views wrong view. And it is one of the fetters in our path. So literally you are going against Buddha himself and then calling yourself Buddhist. It doesn't make any sense. Rebirth, karma, and life after death in heavens, not during nirvana, you can't call that a life, but in heavens, it is a core concept given by Buddha himself. You cannot give me a proof of this that he didn't say that. Even those early Buddhist type stuff, nothing you can find that he doesn't say that rebirth is wrong, karma is wrong, past life is wrong, past life memories are wrong. So it is a core concept of Buddhism. So I would just suggest you to stay a little more cautious when you hear these podcasts and read these books of secular Buddhism because it doesn't make any sense. It is just fancy stuff which they have invented themselves and just riding on this wave of we are we are Buddhists but we don't believe in this stuff. Yeah, you don't have to believe in this. You have to research on this. You have to experience this yourself. Then only you can deny this. You in 21st century you don't even have to experience this. You can just look at the research work of so many of the great researchers like Jan Stevenson and Jim B. Tucker. And even after them, like we have an whole there is a site on internet. It is known as Psi Encyclopedia, psiencyclopedia.com. And it is something like that, and it has so much evidence. Like you can research this stuff yourself. It is not. It's just kind of lazy thinking to call yourself secular Buddhism and do just push people towards the wrong view. So even just say that you are not practicing Buddhist. You just like his philosophy of non-attachment and Four Noble Truths, but don't call yourself Buddhist because you are not Buddhist. So I just wanted to say that I wanted to touch upon this topic of secular Buddhism because they are the ones who actually hate the fact that we discuss the concept of rebirth. So it is a part of topic rebirth because they are the ones who hate the fact that Buddhism should have anything to do with rebirth, but it is a core concept. Rebirth is a core concept of Buddhism. You cannot do away with it. It is the one of the specific problems Buddha had, which he wanted to solve, that we are going through the process of samsara, of rebirth and death. That is the problem he wanted to solve when he did the Mahabhinishkarmana, great renunciation. So yeah, that is all I wanted to say. So that is all I wanted in this video. Those who like this video, please subscribe, please like, and I have a Patreon, and my goal is to have at least 10 patrons at the end of these 3 months. I'm just checking whether I should put my efforts in this channel or not. So that is my goal, just 10, because and now I have zero patrons there, but my goal is to just get 10. So, or 30 subscriber or 40 subscriber at least. So just I don't think like I'm speaking to myself on YouTube. So if you do like this video, please like and subscribe and share. And if you want me to continue producing this type of stuff, please subscribe to my Patreon channel. Thank you.